Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Welcome, Bell River. Bum, 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 bum. 46 Bear defense, War Bear, welcome. Bum, 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 bum. Also, War Bear and Bell Reaver, you guys both have priority to join on the stream if you guys want to jump on and talk. Because Bajo Bear has deferred his priority to you guys. You should feel blessed. Bell Reaver has jumped on, quit more. So War Bear, if you wanted to jump on, next time jump on more quickly because Bell Reaver hit the button first. What's up, bro?
What's up, man? How you doing?
What am I looking at? I'm looking at your ceiling?
No, I'm just going for a walk. Let me show you.
Oh, you're going for a peaceful walk.
What's up?
You're just going for a little peaceful walk? Oh, Bell Reaver.
Hello?
You already have a loading screen.
Yeah. I switched from internet to my data.
All right, cool. I just don't want this to be a problem because
Oh
I
no,
recently.
I've got the I pay my bills, you know. So
Well, like, so
I'm not
just
gonna be,
a
I'm
couple
not gonna
days
be
ago.
going in and out and stuff. What's up?
Well, like, just a couple days ago, I was on someone else's stream as a guest, and he just was out in the middle of nowhere, and so like it wasn't up to him. He just had a terrible connection. So I just want to establish like, are we fighting connection battles, or are you
No,
in cities like?
I think I'm in like it's about we've got 70,000 people here. So it's not a big
All
city,
right, good
but
to go.
it is a city. It's like a suburb type.
Good to go. Continue and ladle the gravy, my friend.
I talked a lot with what's his name, Trainer today, because I've been going into his streams, and he's been talking like he's saying to a lot of people like, oh, you know, it's everything's gonna be fine, it's all good. And then we were talking like back and forth about, you know, I was wanted to know like what he was seeing that I wasn't seeing, because you know what I see is there's a lot of stresses that are being put on the financial system. And I told him about that. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's true." But then I think what it came down to was if you're using that as like a crutch, it's like, "Oh, it's there's nothing that's gonna matter, and in 4 months nobody's gonna have a job, so I should just keep collecting unemployment and then never do anything." Then you're kind of even if it does, you are screwed. You're kind of just like a little bitch, you know, if that makes
Well,
sense.
so it completely makes sense, and I totally understand where you're coming from. But I think there's a different perspective that one can have.
What's up?
And the reason why I say that is because, and like, feel free to call me a little bitch at the end of this scenario because that could be true. But
Yeah.
here's like where I'm coming from is there was a long period of my life where because of my experiences in Afghanistan, the government paid me X amount of dollars per month just because of my PTSD. And a lot of my life experience in these past couple of years, I was just like, my whole mindset was just like, oh, I can live. Like, I've got enough money to keep doing my thing. Like, I don't care. I'm in so much pain because of all of these various things. And so it's like, I can't even begin to process what a lot of like normal, healthy people process.
Right.
And because I have that crutch of government assistance,
Yeah,
in
but isn't
addition to my current pain.
don't you think that's kind of a little bit by design to kind of, I don't know, like kind of to keep you down? Like it's always kind of there. Like you don't have to go out and work. You could just stay and kind of, you know, you could just kind of veg out and not do anything with yourself, and then well, you'll still have money, precious money. You know what I mean?
So on one hand, I completely agree, and like that's why I'm vocalizing my
But
scenarios
I'm not.
because
I'm not saying that you shouldn't be getting that for
oh no,
going
dude,
through hell. I'm just saying that like it's like
yeah, dude,
if you're getting, for example, if you lost your job and then they say, oh, we're actually going to pay you more than you got when you were working. It's kind of a little fishy, It's like, well, you want me to be sort of dependent on you? You know what I mean? That type of
well,
thing.
yeah, like in that specific scenario, like if you're making more money off of unemployment than you could at your regular job, then yes, you have a fiscal um, incentive to take unemployment and not work, and that is
It's a
I
little creepy, right? Like kind of watch your back a little when you start
I
seeing
wouldn't
that sort of
necessarily
thing.
it's creepy, but it's basically all right, Brianna, I'll definitely message you when I'm done with my life. But I wouldn't say it's creepy, but it's definitely something that is very common when it comes to like large bureaucracies, which we happen to be in.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
But like just I it's like oh Jesse, welcome. But like for my situation specifically, um when I first got out of the Marine Corps was 2012, and I spent 4 years struggling with the VA, doing paperwork, blah blah blah, and it was a whole crazy scenario of events, and like praise the Lord that things just like happened the way they did, but right as I became crippled was when the VA finally like processed my payments and like gave me the disability I have now. And so part of that, like obviously praise the Lord for everything that's happened. But what's kind of interesting for me was I was working, doing my thing, and then when I became crippled, within a couple of months after becoming me becoming crippled, that's when my disability kicked in, and I got like back payments and shit. But after that, I like I've had these years to really process a lot of the emotional pain that I've gone through from these various scenarios, whether it's combat or personal friendships, like et cetera, like whatever. And because of that comfortable situation where I've been able to process things and just kind of be in my own little world, basically, I I, I think I've kind of made that into a crutch a little bit. And so
Yeah. Do you
this
think
past like
you're better off having not from being crippled per se, but from having your paperwork going through getting the back pay? Do you think that's been like an
oh yes, like
that's good? Because
yeah, dude, that's an absolute
my dad is not is he retired a couple he retired 3 4 years ago. Um, he was a doctor at St. Rose Hospital in Hayward. It's a private organization. I don't know
uh-huh.
if I don't know if how the hospitals work different if it's public or private because I guess the public you're dealing with it's more bureaucratic, more government funds. The private they're not allowed to turn people back that are real sick, but if they are kind of not going to die right then and there, they'll transfer them to the county hospital at Highland. But from what he said, it was really hard to get the VA to pay if the person was below, I think it was like lieutenant rank. So if they were a private sergeant, it was really hard
Bro,
to get payment.
the first 6 months I was crippled, the VA refused to see me. I would call like me crippled, like between me screaming in pain.
Oh
Like
fucking hell!
I would call the VA with every second that I had while they were open to try and make appointments, and like things just wouldn't work. Like again and again and again and again and again for 6 months, and so finally, I was just so fed up with like the bullshit. I literally had my dad drop me off at the like entrance of the VA hospital, and he got me into a little wheelchair because, like I said, at the time I was crippled
Right, right.
and I couldn't. And so I took this little fucking VA wheelchair and I rolled it up. I hit the elevator to the 6th floor where all like the CEO executives, all of them were. And dude, I just made a ruckus in the special boys offices until like they were so uncomfortable with me being there that
They
like
finally
they
let you
forced
through.
to see me.
Hey man,
Because like at
that's
this
better than
point,
having to pay your own crap for, what you did for the state or what happened to you
well,
because of
dude,
what you did.
honestly, like if I at the time, if I had the like financial means to just pay for my own like medical services at the time,
I'm sure
I would have done that.
would have been less stress, but sometimes,
Yeah,
you
so like
don't,
suffering for
you
six
don't.
months and finally getting fed up to finally like, go so extreme was really stressful and painful in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah. That's why I think like when was it, 2014? There was all these sort of videos of it would be veterans that go into the VA emergency room and then like nobody helps them and they just die or they, they have a
Yeah.
heart attack. Or to me, I think that's real from from the experience I know with my dad. Because he was telling me like for these private hospitals, they didn't want to deal with any military that was below a lieutenant because like I said, the VA would
Oh, dude,
do
like
what they did to
the
you. They didn't
private
want to do it.
hospitals you speak of
Right.
are like not even the tip of the iceberg. Like when you talk about like VA hospitals,
Those are maybe worse.
like there are like yeah, like so the Phoenix, like so I'm in the Phoenix metro area. I'm in Tempe, Arizona.
Right.
Born and raised in Phoenix. So, but like the Phoenix VA hospital is one of the biggest VA hospitals in the country, and they also have one of the worst records. Like they kill hundreds of veterans every year just because like veterans are waiting for treatment. Like my mom or my grandma's boyfriend before he died, like probably 2 years before he died, he went to the VA hospital in Phoenix, and because my mom is like a nurse with like 3 decades of experience, she went to go visit him and just saw his conditions and was like, "Nope, the VA is about to kill you. I'm transferring you to a different hospital." And she saved his life for another couple of years, and then like because he's old as shit and
Yeah.
got shot in the stomach in the Korean War, like all sorts of crazy shit. Eventually, he died anyways.
Right.
And to be fair, he was a douchebag, so like good riddance. But point being is the poor care of the VA like almost killed him before his time, and my mom, because of her experience and coincidence, saved him.
Yes,
And most veterans aren't that lucky. Most veterans in that scenario just die because of lack of care from the VA.
so if you had gone to, I don't know how big of a city Phoenix is and how much of the nonsense they're doing, but let's say that veteran that isn't getting care went to the city, decided he's going to become a heroin addict. Would they give him a free needle?
Um,
Just as a question, because in at least in SF and some of the cities up north here, I'm not too, I don't know about Vallejo and Stockton, but I would imagine probably around the same. Train I know no more of that than me.
well, yeah, like so that's a really good question because like Freattle and like especially like you were saying SF and like a lot of these specific cities, yes, they would totally get it, but and I'm pretty ignorant on this to be fair,
Right.
but from like what I've observed in my own city, I don't think that there is a big like needles program or like those kinds of things in the Phoenix metro area because like just the differences in like violence escalation, SJW escalation, these cities where there are like the needle programs and like higher volumes of SJW nonsense, like needle programs, like that's where we see cities burning.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
like
was
a
I
SF.
was legitimately concerned that Phoenix was gonna burn, and I was gonna go to the downtown and go film it and blah blah blah. But we really only had like 3 or 4 nights of riots or whatever, and they were kind of spread out. And so like Phoenix, from what I've seen thus far, as of right now, seems pretty stable despite all the crazy bullshit.
Dude, SF to me, my grandparents still live there. they bought their house in cash, like in the 50s, I think. So they, you know, they weren't doing the usury train. But my grandma told me, she was cute. She says, you know, if we would have taken out loans, we could have had 10 of these houses. Because right now they put all their money in PG&E, and then it dipped. So
Oh,
they're in a tough
oh,
situation. So
dude, they
she
put all
was
their money in skinny.
yeah. My grandfather really believed in PG&E, but so she's telling me, you know, if we would have bought those 10 houses, we would have had 10 houses, and right now we have one rental because they purchased a duplex. We would have had so much, you know, we would have been safe. And I'm like, yeah, come on, you know, my uncle,
Well, safe.
yeah, you know, but that's how they're thinking. But I mean, they're like both 90 anyway. But I went there. I'm painting their house. Um, just kind of, they're. I don't think they're paying me. My uncle's paying me. But so I'm doing that, and I'm there pretty much every weekend. And they are the city part there. It's not SF like downtown. It's about 15 minutes away. It's in the Mission District. There's a lot of it's very heavily, like, I think it's heavily Mexican and like Vietnamese. And
Hmm.
all the people when I'm painting, they're all like, they come up, they say hi. There's no, I mean, if you go to the downtown, you'll see people with signs. I guess they're angry protesting, but there's not really the same. It's not like Portland or Chaz, not that level yet. But it is nonsense with other stuff. It's kind of strange.
Well, I mean, like those
Someone
like
started a
areas
fire.
are pretty corrupted already.
Oh yeah, I mean they're pretty well, yeah. But because when you go there, you don't. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like you're in like a. I don't know. It's hard to explain because you say, "Oh, SF is like really, really, you know, it's
Dude,
pretty
SF has a
corrupt." But like you go to Daly City, South San Francisco. It's kind of it's almost like it is here. Maybe not nighttime. I've only been there. The latest I've been there is like 9.
yeah, like that's like one of the big moves of all these like chaos things is all right, so right now I've just got a loading screen from you. But a lot of these chaos things, oh you're back, is during the day and early evening, the normal people just do their thing and no one's scared. But then when night comes out, Batman terrorizes the population and Antifa comes out and does their fucking thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been really thinking like how does a push, I don't know how to explain it, but how does, like, I've been talking to this guy on Instagram. His family keeps getting run out of countries because they went against the Bolsheviks in Russia, and then they got kicked out of France, and now they're here. And I'm like, dude, you're fucking cursed. Like, you're bringing these fucking people here. All these, I'm just joking with him. But he told me, like, it's not uncommon for a radical minority to take over a government. And I can't, I have a very hard time, like, conceptualizing. Like, what, they just get the White House and then, like, oh, now they're in and
Well,
it's over? They need the people to support it, don't they? They have to.
all right, so you say you're having a difficult understanding conceptualizing that. So a minority of about 1%, 1 to 3
Right.
percent of the population, depending on whatever poll you listen to,
That's
is
very, very dedicated.
Jewish,
Yeah, oh, yeah,
right?
yeah, I hear that. Yeah, yeah. And they've got
And
a lot of
so,
power.
are you aware that over 80 members of Congress have dual citizenship with Israel?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's something to these. I'm just kidding.
So,
Just kidding with it.
uh, that's just one example, man. And yes, that's an obvious one, but when you have an out like there's a multitude of examples
Right.
of similar situations throughout the world where you have a outside country just like dropping cash into local politics of another country specifically for the purpose of altering that other country's politics because you're funding all of their politicians. It happens all over the world every day. It just so happens that in America, the Jews are very prominent.
So
It is what it is.
it's not like it's not like you go in there, you take over the capital, and then now you've got them. It's more like how it works here.
Yeah, no. So like a good example is Jared Kushner married Trump's daughter.
Right. And I think she converted to
She did.
whatever the hell he's doing.
And so historically speaking, that's how the Jews gain entrance into the power circles. They either A, have their sons marry the daughters of a powerful person, or they give their daughter up to marry like kings or princes or shit.
Right.
But that's how, historically speaking, how like the main way that Jews enter into power circles is through marriage.
So they're then what the hell? Why? What do you think's going on? Like, what do you think is the end goal with burning down a city?
Burning down the city lowers real estate prices.
Right.
Lowered real estate prices means that other companies can come and buy said plots of real estate for lowered prices and then do whatever the fuck they want to do with the land. And it just so happens that Agenda 2030 is all talking about smart cities. And, like, yeah, there is evidence of a lot of smart cities being built. For example, there's a smart city being built 30 miles that way from where I'm sitting right now. Like, yes, I'm aware of these things, but it's like, all right, and?
I think you've helped me better see how that can really help. Because then they get more purchasing power. This 1%, 2%, 10, I don't know how many there are. Probably 1 to 2, maybe 3. Then they can.
It's like, let's say
then their money's
you
more
have
useful. They get more control.
Let's say you have a block of buildings, and in your block you have 10 buildings,
Right.
and each one of your buildings is worth $10. And then BLM comes and burns all the shop fronts, and now each of your 10 buildings is only worth $6. Now some outside source is going to come and buy all your buildings for $6, re-renovate them for $2, and then sell them for $11 like 10 years from now. Ta-da!
And then
profit.
They get they stake their claim a little better for less resources, essentially.
Exactly. That's it.
I mean, they're pretty fucking good at what they do, man.
Yeah, like the whole social manipulation aspect, like hats off to them. Like small hats off to them. They do it well. It's just once you understand how they like maneuver, like then we have a whole new playbook on how to not fall for their bullshit.
Right.
And that's all.
Yeah, it's not like actual I guess coercive power. No one's putting a gun to your head like watch the porno, take the loan. It's more like I want to do it because I'll get better. I'll get a nice car. I'll finally get that supermodel girlfriend. And then most likely you're just gonna like take a vacation once a year or some shit. Like that's what happens in the Bay Area. It's like I work my ass off. I've got all this debt, but you know what? I get to go to Greece, and I get to go to the beach. And then my life is horrible, but
that's where it gets interesting. It's because those people that can have elaborate vacations, those people are exposed to more temptations. But even the family, quote unquote, family man who has like one vacation with his family a year, own specific set of temptations. Oh, now you're gone. Damn. But he's also exposed to his own specific temptations, and whatever temptations you're exposed to as a man or a woman, like whatever that temptation is, like if you submit to it, that can take you down. First Aid Bear says, JapJap, what do you think of splitting the difference between republic and fascism? Ooh, that's interesting. All right, Bell Reaver, I'm going to let you back on, but I'm going to need you to shut the fuck up while I think about this for a second. Splitting the difference between republic and fascism.
We may have a little connection issue. My lock screen went on, so I got kicked out. So I'll just keep pressing it or something. But other than that, are we good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but shut the fuck up real quick. All
All
right,
right,
so
no worries.
I got it, First Aid Bear. So splitting the difference between republic and fascism would be very similar to what Vox Day was just saying with
Venice.
Republic of Venice.
Yep.
So the fascism aspect would be how the Republic of Venice had the 60 leading or founding families as the leading class. Bell Reaver, are you loading? You're back? Maybe, who knows? Anyways, I'll continue.
I can see
Um,
myself.
but then you balance that with a republic, and like literally Vox Day just described this whole thing. So I'm surprised it took me so long to process it. But basically, it's a balance between the various portions of society. And so in America, we have a constitutional republic, and the main party that is responsible to like mitigate like all the arguments is the Supreme Court. And so in the Venetian system that lasted many hundreds of years longer than our current republic has, they put the Supreme Court arbitration authority with the original founding families as opposed to something called the Supreme Court that we use. And like they had a very complicated legal system that balanced the various families, so on and so forth. But the reason why what Vox Day was saying with the value of a like one of the founding families of this like nation, this group of people, while like having that those founding families continually be an important aspect of the governing body for the entirety of time is because the founding families are like the bedrock foundation, socially speaking, of that community. And so those founding families found a specific community with similar values for a specific purpose. And so the main value of giving these founding families like this extra level of authority is because it assumes that these founding families are going to maintain the cultural values throughout time. Because
if your
what's up?
grandfather was like if your grandfather, let's say, started like a town, and then
Yes.
the ideal would be you make him kind of immortal and he survives through his progeny, through his posterity, and their main goal is to preserve the grandfather's idea of what the town would be. So it's kind of like
Yes.
the main thing missing in the American system would be like a nobility that says, hey, this is who you are, and this is more or less what we do.
Yeah,
Which,
like if your grandfather founded a town, you would want to honor your grandfather and like honor his like vision for the town.
Exactly.
And yeah, exactly. And that's what we're missing in America.
And really, like what your grandfather, what that is it's a family. And if you look at, if you look at if you look at what the word nation means, it has nothing really to do with the state at the root. It's a group of people related by birth. And so, like, if you say, man, grandfather, I'm half Greek, and the Greek half is from this little island that actually Venice was ruled over through vassalage. So for being just a couple people, they did pretty well after the collapse of Rome and throughout. But anyway, it's like if you could say, hey, look, this is what we are, this is what we believe, and then you say, well, your family, your main goal is to say your main goal is to make sure we never lose that idea. Because half of my family, I think it's all screwed, but we settled Oklahoma and then went to California, and then like nobody ever talked about it ever again. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, we're American, but nobody talks about it. So if you had some form of nobility, it doesn't even have to be in the government, they could literally just be cultural, where it's like, hey, look, we don't fucking forget who we are, and then just throw everything away. You know what I mean?
I think that's one of the main weaknesses of the melting pot of America. Like, for example, like on my mom's side of the family, proud Japanese
Right.
that have historical ties, literally to the like Emperor of Japan,
Right.
like that whole family.
Yeah, my
Like,
wife is full Japanese, and her she's descended from samurai, and they keep this, like they sold the swords. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking, but they still keep the tradition going. You know, like, oh, this is what your great grandfather did, and
yeah, like, dude,
this
so
is
like,
why what we have is worth protecting almost.
well, what's crazy about my family is like my grandma, who was born and raised in Japan, like part of her family was straight up samurai, like nobility, like went to the throne of the emperor,
Right.
and then another like offshoot of her family like was yakuza to the max, like so like literally both forms of royalty in my grandma's line, and like so coming like there from my Japanese line, but then from my dad's side of the family, my dad's grandpa was literally the ambassador from Spain to Mexico and married the like beauty pageant winner or whatever the fuck from Mexico. And when you follow the bloodline through my dad's side, I'm literally related to the majority of the royalty in Europe, and most of that like goes back to King David. Like, I shit you not.
Sorry, my phone keeps
And
locking.
so it's like, yeah, cool. You can have all these wonderful bloodlines and blah, 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 but there is a difference between like generational bloodline blessings and curses versus how you act in the here and now. Because I could be the worst sinful person in the world and be like, oh, but my ancestor was King David, and he was a man after God's own heart. That means I'm a special boy.
No, that's not. It doesn't matter like that.
Like, how are you acting today? Like, what are you doing now? You know?
Exactly. Because like there's people that have no connection with, I guess, American heritage, you'd call it, but then they want to be self-sufficient. They want to, sort of pioneer type values, and then it's like, well, are they the heritage Americans that I think that are pretty awesome, but are sleeping like retards? No, but do they literally have the same values? And they're probably not gonna bother anybody if they're just being self-sufficient. Most likely, yeah.
Well, like, the crazy thing, bro, is according like to most of history, I'm not an American. I was born in America. I've served in the American military, but according to the definition of most of history,
right,
I'm not technically an American. I'm just a dirty immigrant.
And I'm a half-breed.
And that blows my mind.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't even know, dude. Nobody talks about it. I don't like it at all. Nobody talks about it at all. Nobody. It's not part of the culture.
The main reason why I know about my heritage is one of my great uncles on my dad's side is working on writing a book, like to like do the whole like heritage of that my entire side of the family on that side, and then on my mom's side, it's just like kind of a commonly known thing because it was like really super dramatic and shit.
Right.
But like, you're right. Most people don't know their heritage very well, and that's like really detrimental.
Oh yeah. I completely agree. And then like for most of my family, if I try to talk to them about it, they shut down, or they get a little angry at me. They're like, what does it matter? You're here now. I'm like, well, I'd like to know what happened, because my grandfather was really into Oklahoma college football, because they were called the Sooners.
Mm-hmm.
And he got kicked out. I guess not kicked out, but the whole clan was purged out of Scotland in like 1604. Was when James Stewart or something took power and then decided to get rid of all the
Oh,
border
dude,
reavers.
James douchebag. He
Yeah,
fucked your country up.
yeah. Well, I don't even know too much about it, but he in 1604, like they kind of my clan of people. I'm sure they weren't nice people. They made they were generationally cursed by the Catholic Church, so I've heard. So apparently, all my whole bloodline's going to hell,
No,
according to the
dude,
Catholic
like,
Church. But I don't believe it. But I'm just saying that's sort of the politics that was going on in Scotland, England at the time. And then we got kind of we lost. Of course, we lost against the Crown. Not of course, but that is what
like
happened. And then we got
you
pushed
know
out
your
here.
history of Scotland and how, like,
Yeah, but
Britain has been trying to subjugate Scotland for hundreds of years.
right.
Like, this is just another one of those
Right.
things, bro.
But
That's it.
I only know about that because of a website called Clan Bell. I don't know about that from my actual family. Like my dad will like,
Dude, look into that specific war, or that not war, but that specific conflict. It's super interesting.
right.
You'll learn a lot.
And I'd like to know when, like exactly when they came over, at least the ballpark. I only know that it started in 1604 and then ended. I think it took quite a while because those people were pretty tough. But now they're all, pacified because it's almost, you take out all the strong ones and say, hey, look, we're going to war with you and you can't stay here. You're either going to Ireland or you're going to colonies. It's like, well, yeah, of course you're going to get the kind of domestic sheep type people living there now. I guess the
I mean,
Highlands one.
yeah, like sending them to the colonies, sending them to Australia was a thing, but I would be willing to argue that between World War One and World War Two, the vast majority of Alpha, Bravos, and Deltas were
Yeah.
just all murdered.
I hear you. That was a lot of people dying.
Yeah. And like once you get rid of all the men who are willing to defend society and women,
Well, then
that's when like
then the gates are
the
really open.
EU comes to power.
Right. Then the gates are really open for some radical minorities with some nefarious plans and ideas of how I guess the world should be run, I suppose.
Yo, Bozzy's girl, welcome.
But yeah, man, I am. I don't know. I'm having like a conflict of like a career, I guess. I'm studying for a CFA. I view it as like a parasite job. So I almost want like the professional jobs to kind of
Define CFA. Is that finance?
Yeah, it's finance, chartered financial analyst.
Oh, tracking.
So I really get the stuff, and apparently people I'm a finance major in college, and people in my class didn't think it was interesting, and I think it's interesting. And my wife is like pushing me, like, you would be able to pass the test, you should do it. But in my mind, I'm like, Jesus, like this stuff like almost destroys society. So it's like, you know what I mean?
So I totally get where you're coming from. And one of my best friends from high school is in a very similar position. He's a lawyer by trade.
Right.
And like he's made a lot of sacrifices to make it. Like he used to be in a really high level law firm or whatever.
Right.
But he made sacrifices with his wife to get to like a lower scale law firm so that he can like not be such a slave. And so I think that within your field specifically, like you have a lot of opportunity to make a lot of money and really excel in your field, which is more important, is to excel in your field for a short period of time and just know, because like in your heart of hearts, as you're excelling in this field temporarily, you're just preparing for a long-term homestead. And so at that point, because like from what your peers have said, and it's kind of from your demeanor, I can tell like you're really good at this, is where it's like, all right, this is something God has blessed you with. So now it's a matter of how long do I pursue this? How many resources should I save before I transition to the next chapter of my life?
That's pretty awesome, dude. You're fucking awesome. I'll just say that right now. You're pretty cool.
Gracias, señor.
I like you a lot, Jet Bear. I was thinking of something else. You know what I made an Instagram called the Bears Market because Trina was interested because I think a lot of the bear people are not to make a pun here, but I'll make a pun. They are bearish on the state of the economy. Of course, long term they're bearish, right? Because even Vox would say he thinks the financial system is not going to survive the stresses, which I think it's a decent point. And he says, well, is it going to happen tomorrow? Probably not. So I was thinking, I already made the Instagram, the email. I was thinking of having going through all the 50 states and saying, well, if you're going to buy a house here with a mortgage, which state has the best laws? Because, like, for example, California, say what you will about them, they have decent laws with the debt. You don't get any penalties for overpaying. And instead of having your payments go down, what happens is the loan life goes down. So if you overpay double, you won't get any penalties, but you'll pay off your house. If it was a 30-year, you're paid off in 15. And if you repay a lot, your loan will die quicker.
I completely agree. And while that is a very valuable service, I would submit that providing an additional service of not just what you're talking about is.
I'm sorry, man. I did only half of it. And also, I was thinking to sort of teach people how to do more shorter term investments, like maybe a month or based on what their time frame was. Like if someone wants to buy a house in the next year or so, you wouldn't say go into stocks. You would tell them to go into, depending on how quick they're going to buy the house, like 1 month treasuries, because the probability that the state's going to fail in the month is probably near zero, right? Like 1 month.
Yep.
1 month, I don't think it's going to all collapse, but maybe you get a 30-year, maybe now you're taking some real risk. So just stuff like that, like say, okay, I'll have like a highlights with time frames, and then I'll have some like short-term trading strategies, I guess.
I think so I've been kind of on the fringes of looking into the whole stock market thing for a long time.
Right.
And when you first started talking, I had one perspective, but once you finish and finish your thought process, now I've got a whole completely different vibe on that.
Sure.
Where it's I think a big, not negative, but kind of a big obstacle, mental obstacle for a lot of people is most investment platforms are oh, you needed minimum $500 or minimum X amount of dollars or whatever.
Right.
And there's not a lot of I've looked into this a lot, and I've yet to find a investment site or resource, what may have you, whatever the proper term is, where it's all right, you've got $50, here's a good start, kind of thing, and I understand that if you only have $50, the logical course is penny stocks, and I know penny stocks are not very consistent or valuable with mainstream traders, et cetera, but it's there's got to be some sort of source for someone to just start playing with these things with less than $100,
I had, when I first got into the market, I was in college, and it was a couple of years ago only, but I had I think I had $1,000, and I decided I'm going to take $100 of it and start, being more risky with my trades. And you can potentially buy something for $5, and then by the time it matures, you can actually make $50 on that if you're right with the directions. But you'll play with a $2 stock, and then you'll what you do is you'd buy an option, and then if you're right, you can turn that 5 into 50, and if you put all 50, which I wouldn't recommend, but you could start up that way. Is that what you're talking about?
So yes, that's what I'm talking about. But to also answer what you're talking about and also answer the 46 Bear Defense is over the years, I've invested about 2 grand in the stock market,
Right.
and I would guess I got about 2,200 back, like, which is good. I didn't lose money, which is like most people lose money on the stock market.
Right.
But like, I never invested like a lot of money, and most likely I just got lucky. And so like, is there some sort of like like super small scale where you can just invest like 50 or $100 a month and like kind of like develop this kind of thing? Landed in a bear welcome, and like I know it's possible, but I've never seen any brokerage that pursues that, because all the brokerages that I've seen are like, oh, minimum 500, minimum 1,000, minimum X amount of dollars, and it's like,
Right.
well, what if I'm not a special pro? Like, what if like I'm kind
Then
of
they
poor,
don't
but
want
I
your
also want to, you know?
right. Right. So you're saying that could be like you could actually provide a good service to people that they're not really of means and kind of
Yeah, exactly. That would be a wonderful service, because most of these brokerages have a minimum of a $500 investment. And so it's like, all right, like, what about investors that are just starting out and they don't want to like risk $500, because that's a big deal for them. And like, for retard investors like me, like I've spent money in the stock market, and I didn't get a really big return because I was a retard. Like,
right.
you know?
Yeah, I can see that now, but I think, man, penny stocks are. I've never even done that. I think that's playing with fire because they sort of go crazy. You know what I mean? They can like
Yeah, so I
go
told
nuts.
where like the vast majority of cases, penny stocks are very volatile, but I have seen very specific like strategy options that are very reliant on penny stocks and the volatility of penny stocks and the in-depth research on the company involved. And so like,
Your audio is like.
I'm peeing
There
right
you go.
now, so that's
Oh,
probably
all
why
right,
my audio
all
sucks.
right, all right.
So now I'm done. But so like, basically is that like I've done a lot of research on stocks and the various strategies of stocks, etc., etc., etc. But when push comes to shove, when it comes to these various like quote unquote like investing options, most of the excuse me, all of the resources that I have seen require a minimum
$500.
of like of a significant
Right.
investment. And so because of just like the stats on the stock market, where like such a high percentage of people fail, like I don't want to put like that kind of investment. So like oh yes, my food is finally cold. So earlier, I know I'm complete tangent,
No worries.
but earlier today, let me switch the screen. I made like, this is broccoli and egg noodles and like really high quality beef and like cabbage and a bunch of other vegetables. And it's basically like an Asian like stir fry melody that I made earlier today. I was waiting for it to cool down before I put it in. But like,
Is it all just no like noodles or anything?
uh, it was natural noodles and organic stuff, and like basically it was all like as organic and natural as I could get it.
How's your Sleuth World news coming?
So right now I'm in the kind of like awkward phase where I know what I want to do, but I don't quite have the format. And so right now I'm thinking that I'm going to start out with like just basic general stories, but I also want it to have a comedic value. And like, I don't just want it to be like, oh, North Korea just launched another nuclear test,
Be scared.
and
Yeah.
China just had more sanctions on Australia, and the beef market is out of I'm very aware of all these like nuances of like international geopolitics,
Right.
but I'm working on finding a way of making it like comedic and interesting. Because I don't just want to be another like monologue face person where it's like, oh, and then this happened in this country, and then this happened in this other country, and blah 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 blah.
How are you
Because
with like drawing or animation type stuff?
so at one point in my life, I experimented with my artistic like drawing skill,
Right.
and like I've got that and that and that, and like they're just basically based off of geometric objects. But for the most part, I'm a pretty shitty artist.
Well, I'm not so good either. But I was thinking instead of doing it where it's just like, oh, hey, look, something kind of bad happened. You could make sort of animated characters, and then you could sort of make the voices, or you could monologue of what's actually going on. You ever seen like Poland Ball? Kind of like comics, but it would be
That would be good.
sort of like that. Like just that. I mean, that's like real shitty. Like they just do like a circle with a face, and then have it be a flag, and it's like you could do something along that lines. I don't know how you'd animate that, but that could maybe be comedic because you can do a lot of things with the animation. You wouldn't have to pay people for
Definitely.
it.
And there's a lot of options, and like that's like why I'm like, I guess kind of so hesitant. It's the whole like psychological concept where the more options you get, the more like you hesitate between choosing your options.
Right.
And I want to do this correctly. And the world is a big place with a lot of countries,
Right.
and I
That'd be a
don't want
lot
to
of-
just be another monologue, you know?
Right. Are you thinking of focusing on one area, or you want to do the whole world?
Sleuth world
Right. Okay.
news.
Yeah. So the whole world, I guess.
So like I know that like it would be much easier if I was like America world news or whatever. Like if I focused on a specific country, it
Right.
would make my job way easier. But that's not what I'm feeling, and like it just makes my job harder. It is what it is.
Yeah. And you want to make it comedic too. See, that's the thing. That would be really interesting because most of the news that you see is kind of like you said, oh, North Korea's, they're gonna come eat your babies and bomb you. It's all like you should be a little scared of these North Koreans. It's never like,
So it's like
oh, look at them, they threw a bomb
instead
on
of
the
saying so instead of saying like North Korea has just committed their seventh nuclear test and the world is terrified. Instead of saying that, you'd be like, North Korea is really scared, so they just had to squirt for a seventh time. And turns out their nuke kind of sucked.
river. Oh, where'd it land? Oh, it's in the water again. Ah, fuck it, who cares? Didn't hit
It started to
anybody
go up.
important.
Oh, and it's in the water.
It's a
It's
miss.
gone.
Swing and a miss. Number 7. Oh, come on. One of these North Koreans going to get it together. See,
I thought they were going to make a real bomb, but they fucked up again. Oh, darn.
The North Korean war on the sharks continues later tonight with more news.
Yes. In other news today, North Korea attempted to nuke the sharks, and unfortunately they suck at building bombs, so they failed again.
No, it was like the sharks were victorious.
In other news today, in North Korea's war against the sharks, another nuclear test has failed, and the sharks have killed another 1,000 North Koreans. The war is not looking too good for North Korea.
I think that would be much better than the current news cycle, actually.
That's what I'm saying. Is because like with Beartarian News, they're just doing a whole new unique thing of just like positive, good content.
Right, they're
And
not. Yeah, they're doing more like covering the bears and what they're doing. It's not like, oh, the shark war with the North. Yeah, I get you.
And like I also want to provide a service to the Bears where it's like, oh, world news, but I don't want to do it in a depressing or like stupid way. Like I want to do it
fear.
in a funny and educational way.
Right. Yeah, because you know, the North Koreans aren't actually going after the Sharks, but you did get into that there was a missile that was fired.
Exactly.
It's just the intended target. I mean, maybe, you know, who knows? Maybe the intended target is those damn Sharks. I mean, if it was Japan, don't you think they'd be hitting Nagasaki, Hiroshima, Tokyo? No, they're going after the ocean, man. That's pretty funny.
All right, brother, man. It's
right.
bedtime for me.
I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna get home.
Farewell, man. Have a safe walk.
Yeah, have a good sleep.
All right. Thanks, dude. Later.